Hello, my name is Peter Bieloslavek, and I am pleased to start this lecture on the adult's learning context. I would like to clarify that learning is perhaps the most complex aspect to deal with in human behavior, and I would like to explain why. Learning, the decision to learn, depends absolutely on the learner. It might be influenced in some way, but in fact, true learning only happens if the individual needs the knowledge he is acquiring, because only in that case it is stored in the long-term memory of the individual and can be used that way. I learned bicycling when I was very young, when I was a child. I never forgot it. If I see a bicycle, I can ride it without a problem, because the knowledge to ride a bicycle is in my mind, is in my long-term memory. When something is stored in the long-term memory, it is useful. And if it is not stored in the long-term memory in a meaningful way, which means it allows an individual to use it in concrete cases to solve concrete problems, it is absolutely useless. Superior education, the Unicist superior education, is based on approaching the real problem of learning, uh, defining a context, a pre-existing context that must be given in order to enable the starting of a learning process. We have been working for more than 40 years in this field, and I'm not talking about the field of education, I am talking about the field of doing, because learning is meaningful when it allows an adult to do something he could not do before. But we are specialized in two different approaches to learning. One approach that deals with systemic problems that allows individuals to manage operational and analytical aspects of reality, to make things happen without needing to know why things happen, just the know-how suffices. And on the other hand, we deal with the learning of complex problem solving, dealing with the adaptiveness of individuals, dealing with the adaptiveness of processes to make things happen in complex environments. Both aspects, the systemic learning, meaning the operational that is basic and operational learning, and the complex problem learning, require the existence of a context in order to allow an individual to learn. Adults only learn when they feel hunger of what they need to know. But knowledge is not their goal. Knowledge is the mean towards real action to provide real solutions. The long-term memory includes three different types of memories. On the one hand, there is an episodic memory that deals with the memory of the experiences of the past that makes the individual feel that he is in a secure environment. The semantic memory, where the facts, the concepts, the structures, the principles are stored, that allow individuals to apprehend and know why of what is happening, and allow individuals to adapt to the environment in changing situation, which is the case of adaptive aspects of businesses. And the procedural memory that defines how to develop something, a strategy, an action in an adaptive environment. This can only happen when there are several conditions given. The knowledge has to be meaningful. And meaningful means two aspects. one hand, it has to be justified to do something, meaning what for? And the second, on the other hand, that it has to have the necessary foundations I have to have in mind in order to accept the knowledge as valid. This is the know why, meaning when an individual has the know how and the what for, and the know why, understanding the rules and the logic of what is happening, then the individual can use the knowledge. What is necessary to achieve this point where the individual profits from a new knowledge he is acquired? Children learn in a different way than adults. Children are naturally hungry unless uh, they are handicapped. Adults, on the other side, only learn what they need. That's a limit with rare exceptions. The exceptions exist, but they are rare. Meaning, the final objective, the final context of, of a learning process is the need of adding value to something. When there is a need to add value, the knowledge that solves an, a lack of knowledge that pre-exists is welcome. Meaning, an individual learns when he has no comfort zone to protect himself. But education, the role of education is not to change the comfort zone of individuals. I'm talking of adult education. The role of adult education is to provide a comfort zone in some place where the individual has none. Meaning, adult learning processes are action driven by definition. When we start with hypothetical seminars, with hypothetical studies, all that is very interesting. Might be a very interesting pastime for some people, others prefer to go to the cinema. Meaningless knowledge might be stored, might be remembered, but it is not stored in a meaningful way in the long-term memory and cannot be used. That's why you see frequently people who can repeat theoretical knowledge, and when they are supposed to be applying it, they do what they always did. My, my hero, Albert Einstein, said that crazy people who do the same thing again and again and expect a different results are mad. I don't know if it said it this way or not. I just read it in some place and it was meaningful to me because I saw lots of people, including myself, to do things I did before but expecting a different result. My benefit, my personal benefit that deals with my skills is that I measure all what I imagine by results. When results are not there, I know I am wrong. And that allows me to learn. That means learning of human beings is always driven by needing to do something and having the necessary skills to solve it, but they need to have the necessary benchmarks to define when something that an individual is doing has achieved the necessary threshold to be valid and to be have the adequate quality and results. This approach to learning implies that a learning process can only begin if individuals need to add value in a situation where they feel absolutely un- where they are in an uncomfort situation that drives them mad because they cannot solve it and they need to find something to solve it. This is the condition for adults to begin a learning process. All those who start a learning process without being without needing it to do something, do not learn it, then and they just develop pastime activities or games that produce negative results for all. The value that has to be added is always finally at the end a subjective value, meaning it is something has a value because someone considers that what is being done is valuable. But this subjective value has to includes uh, as an added value an objective value which deals with the functionality of what one is doing and with a benefit for the one who is doing it and for the environment. When these conditions are given, there is another condition that must be given. That means I might be needing to do something, but I might or not have assumed the responsibility for doing it. Because the responsibility deals with loneliness. When I'm responsible for something, I am alone. I might be in a team, but in a team, when a team is doing something that has to produce a result, all the members of a team have 100% of responsibility to achieve the goal, meaning everyone is alone, but sharing the loneliness of his responsibility with others who might have other skills and might be complementary in order to build a synergy to produce the goal. But when the responsibility is not given, nothing, no learning process begins. This responsibility, in fact, is just the active function of the need to improve of an individual. When I say the active function is that is what drives the action. Behind this driver of action, which is the responsibility, there is the need to be hungry to produce something. If you're not hungry, if you're not eager, if you don't need to, then you will never feel the true responsibility and you might be obliged by the environment to do something, but you cannot learn because the responsibility is not there. And this hunger and responsibility is sustained, is integrated by the need to have the will to achieve the goals whatever happens. Meaning, when something has to be solved, means that it has not been solved before. Means it is not easy. It might be more or less difficult, but it's not natural because if it would be natural, there would be no problem. That is why the will is has to be there in order to avoid quitting when the difficulties appear on the table. When an individual needs to solve a problem, meaning to add value, and has the responsibility and the hunger and the will to do that, then a learning process might begin. And I say might because there must be certain conditions given to allow the process to begin. It's not automatic. An individual who assumes a responsibility has different alternatives to assume the responsibility. One of them, having assumed the responsibility and perceiving he cannot do that, is saying, it exceeds my possibilities. Meaning the individual needs to have the decision to learn and the decision to solve the problem and to acquire the necessary knowledge to solve it. And the problem might have two different shapes. On one hand, there's the systemic problem, which we call the simple problem, which are driven by cause-effect relationship uh, uh, between the variables or the elements that compose the problem. In that case, a learning process begins that requires having the necessary knowledge, comprehension, and application of the tasks the individual needs to develop to solve that systemic problem. That's clear. That the traditional simple but simple is implies not easy. Uh, Simple implies that it is logical that the individual is able to learn cause-effect actions that produce results, and at the end he does a process where 1 plus 1 equals 2, meaning it is simple because you know that you have to do this, this, and this to produce that. When this is the case, the problem can be solved, the, the task is learned, but it can be only learned and stored in long-term memory when the individual elaborated real solutions to real problems that makes it meaningful. Real solutions to real problems might, like in the pilot training, flying in a simulator, but the simulator is a real case that produces the same consequences of the real flying process. But that is valid in a systemic environment with cause-effect relationships. When you enter in the world of complexity, simulators are gates, are useless, because complex reality is integrated by elements that are integrated by conjunctions that have biunivocal relationship, means one produces an effect on the other and the other produces the effect on the first one. This implies that the cause-effect imagination is useless, is meaningless, and it can be only experienced in the real world. Systemic education deals with knowledge, com comprehension, and application, and recycling this process. Complex problem learning deals with action, reflection, action, and recycling this process. Meaning, complex problem learning implies being absolutely immersed in the real world in order to make things happen until the individual has the capacity to apprehend the nature of what he's doing, apprehend the concept of what he's doing, and to make the results produce, knowing that at the end he influences the environment, but he doesn't dominate. People who think or want to dominate complex environment are, in terms of Einstein, bad. The complex environment cannot be dominated, although it can be said that knowing the conceptual structure of the environment and what is expected to produce some result, it is possible to define, I'm sorry, I'll be redundant, it's possible to define what is possible, and knowing the resources you have to add value, you can know that the results will be there. Although when you deal with complex environment, you need to do something that is not necessary in systemic problems. You need to have a maximal strategy and you need to have a minimum strategy. You need to have a maximal strategy that allows you to go beyond your own boundaries and immerse into reality, because in complex problems there are no observers. When you are an observer, you have a dualistic approach and you judge what someone is doing or what you are doing. When you're in a complex environment, you have to live it, you have to do it, you have to make it happen, and then have the capacity to consciously apprehend what is happening and finding the structure of the concept that you have to deal with, and how this concept adopts different shapes based on the different characteristics of the environments. This is the context of learning, meaning learning of adults learning requires true problem solving, as a goal. Only if that is the case people can learn. All hypothetical learning, case learning, historical case learning are secure environments that are valid for operational learning to show how it worked in the past. But it can only be stored in the long-term memory if the individual has lived it sufficiently in order to make it meaningful for him. This is what the Unicist approach is about. This cannot be negotiated because there are two business where people should be really honest. Health, because being dishonest kills people, and education. Thank you, and I wish you the best, and I hope we see each other next week.